Let's get more on this story. DA MP Cilliers Brink joining us now live for reaction to what Bongani Baloyi just had to say. So, Cilliers, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. First, let me find out if it is true that the Democratic Alliance sent this SMS out that reads, "Populists like Mashaba are fanning flames of xenophobia, which could lead to a repeat of last year's riots and chaos."
Yes, because indeed Mashaba and other populists are fanning the flames of xenophobia, and this is part of a broader DA campaign to warn South Africans that if we tolerate this type of cheap and easy populism, it won't just affect certain communities, it will spill into our streets, and it might lead to the tragic type of situation that we saw last year. It's a very serious message, because if we don't take this into account, and if we don't hold people who make irresponsible statements and play irresponsible politics to account, then we aren't fulfilling our job in looking after our constitutional democracy. So, no, we are not going to apologize. And we, in fact, challenge ActionSA to take responsibility, because when violence does break out and does spill into the streets, then, of course, they'll be nowhere to be seen. They'll be backtracking, as Herman Mashaba has done. Now, apparently, ActionSA holds government to account, but every opportunity that Herman Mashaba has, he praises Aaron Matsoaledi, the Minister for Home Affairs, to high heaven. So it's a very strange way of holding government to account. The risk is that we don't identify the true source of the failure in South Africa, which is a failing state. The breakdown of the rule of law, the inability of Home Affairs to process even basic applications, and that anger is misdirected and that it affects innocent, ordinary people.
Yeah. So let's talk about the timing of this message, because it comes at a time where we have Zimbabwean national Elvis Nyati actually murdered, while the Diepsloot community is complaining about crime and lots of residents are blaming foreigners. Have you heard the ActionSA saying anything about the situation to have prompted you to actually send out this message?
The issue is, and the DA is certainly not the only party saying this to Herman Mashaba and ActionSA, they are part of legitimizing the atmosphere in which these kinds of things happen. They contribute to a toxic political discourse. And let's just remind ourselves of some of the things that Herman Mashaba has said. Things like linking foreign nationals to Ebola, and even later than that, he has said that he's bringing a motion to the Joburg Council to prevent any foreigner from running a business in the city. That, he says, as the leader of a party in the coalition government of Johannesburg. So he is playing to this atmosphere, and it's very important that we use the open and free political dialogue not to incite harm or incite violence, but to hold people to account for the things that they've said.
Yeah, but, you know, the timing is obviously relevant, because we have an issue in Diepsloot right now.
Very relevant.
Sorry?
Yes, indeed, the timing is relevant. The timing is very relevant, and it's important to point people's attention to the effects that this type of politics has on events. So yes, the timing is very relevant. It is a terrible tragedy that happened, and ordinary people must understand the effects of this kind of toxic diatribe, what it spills over into. So,
but I mean, Cilliers, if you were watching over the past couple of days, and I've been in Diepsloot, the community there was very clear that what they're doing has no affiliation to any political party or any statements. In fact, they even asked for Nhlanhla Lux, who's not a political organization representative, to leave the area. So the timing is relevant in that regard, because this community is saying their concerns about foreigners who might be behind crime in the area has absolutely nothing to do with politicians. And they didn't want politics involved in this matter overall.
Well, it's very strange. I mean, when Nhlanhla Lux arrived there before the breakout of violence, he was accompanied by local leaders of the ANC. he has made political statements before. And parties such as ActionSA has tried to ride the wave. So when you speak about the community, I'd be very careful to say that one group speaks on behalf of the entire community. It is clear that the majority of South Africans don't want mob justice. They don't want violence. They don't want this type of disorder to spill out into the streets and disrupt their businesses and their lives and their families. It's usually a small group of people who do this kind of thing. So those that surround themselves with Operation Dudula, I don't think speak for everybody, but you and I can agree surely that Nhlanhla Lux is also part of the problem. The statements that he has made and the actions that he has taken have contributed to this situation. So I'd certainly not refer to him as an authority and say, he is someone who represents people who don't want to get involved in any type of politics or the things that we've seen happening.
And where does this leave the coalition governments that you have with ActionSA? So
we are different political parties. As I said, we must use the political discourse to hold each other to account. The DA will certainly not allow ActionSA to drive a populist and xenophobic agenda in the governments where we are together. But this is a national political issue, and ActionSA has driven a national political campaign to which the DA has responded.
Okay.
What we do need to say is that the blame for the broken immigration system in South Africa, for Home Affairs, the breakdown of rule of law, and everything that goes with it must be directed at the government and the ANC. And it doesn't help us railing against illegal immigrants, but like Herman Mashaba, praising Aaron Motsoaledi and the ANC government.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. DA MP Cilliers Brink.